Banjo-Tooie in 2000. This game, in my opinion, is mid. It's a good game, don't get me wrong. Banjo-Tooie, a good game. However, is it better than Banjo-Kazooie? Simple answer, no, not at all, not even close. Because I think Donkey said it best, that Banjo-Kazooie was confident in its simplicity. Like I say, it knew what it wanted to be and it did it. Banjo-Tooie, in my opinion, is just trying to do too much. It's trying to do way too goddamn much, to the point where it's like, okay, there's a lot to do in this game. There's a lot of things going on, and that's cool, but like, does this help or hamper the experience overall? And I think it can kind of hamper it in some ways. I think DK64 has like Banjo-Tooie-itis, in that Donkey Kong 64 is probably trying to do too much as well. Okay. My Donkey Kong is not very good. Okay. 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 Oh. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. There you go.
Okay.
It plays in the beginning of Donkey Kong 64 when you boot it up. It shows a logo or something. Why people hate Donkey Kong 64? Wait, people hate Donkey Kong 64? I think it's fine. I had it. I played it. It required the expansion pack, Expand Dong, you know. The cartridge is yellow. Kind of cool. But why the hell do people hate it? And apparently it killed the genre. So the genre being collectathons, I imagine. Because that's kind of the point. So that's the difficulty, right? There's a difficulty when it comes to 3D platformers. In that, how exactly do you make a 3D platformer with the mechanics of 3D platforming? And what objectives are you going to put in it, right? So like, for instance, let's take a newer game like Elden Ring. Technically, that game is 3D, and there is platforming in it, in that either on or off of your spectral steed, you can jump around, you've got to traverse certain terrain, there's some skillful jumps you have to do, but obviously that's not the main point. But you could classify that not as a 3D platforming game, but it is as a game that has some 3D platforming in it, right? Because 3D platformer is not just a game, it's also a thing that happens in a game. So with a lot of the older 3D platformers, like Super Mario 64, the game that I speedrun, I practice for the 120 star category, that's every star in the goddamn game, and I think I'm fairly decent at it. Also, Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, both of which are goated games that really upped the ante, especially Banjo-Kazooie. It was a massive improvement from what they learned from Super Mario 64. Also, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask are also platformers with different kind of mechanics. There's no jump button, so you have to like walk off of ledges to jump and whatnot. But there is still platforming involved in all these puzzles. It's not as intense mechanically, but it's there. So like, once again, the difficulty is, how do you implement the 3D platforming movement where you have like so many options for movement? That's the main thing I think we should start with. You've got this entire 3D space that you can design, and you jump around. That's kind of what you do. And figuring out how to do that and how to make it fun is not only a product of the mechanics themselves, but also the level design. Because of the fact that 3D platforming was new at the time, and the games they were deriving the ideas from were 2D platformers that were very vertical, it's a lot of, vertical movement. But they also wanted to go horizontal because they could and a whole bunch of stuff. The idea of making a 3D platformer like an Elden Ring world is kind of weird. Because Elden Ring is not made for the platforming, it's made for the fighting, right? Whereas a lot of these games are literally made for the platforming. So the kind of jumps and the level design you're going to make in a 3D platformer are going to be more outrageous, more in your face, like, yes, you're going to have to try to traverse this movement. You're going to have to go around and do all these kind of jumps and crazy things, these timed stuff with cycles for these moving objects and whatnot. So obviously it makes sense that would be the case. So then you run into a difficulty where like, okay, so you're running around, jumping everywhere. What's the objective? Why am I going from point A to point B, and why am I being put through these acrobatic trials to do that? Well, we're probably going to collect some things then. In Mario 64, it's stars. You get stars to win the game. You get the star, it kicks you out, except for the 100 coins. And then you go back in the level, and you keep going back and forth like that, which I think is actually pretty fine. Some people don't like it. I think it's fine. Banjo-Kazooie had jigsaw pieces were the main ones, which are like stars in Mario, except you didn't get booted out of the level because there was more of a focus on the exploration and collecting in that game than SM64. The only thing you really collect in SM64 is stars. Other than that, it's coins, and that's only to get 100 to get another star. That's really it. So, like, it's going to be difficult to put other objectives in that kind of a space. Like, imagine, like, trying to focus a lot on combat while making a 3D platformer that you're also focusing a lot on movement on, you're going to have limited space to fight because you need limited space to incentivize people to move around with all the options you've given them. If you have like a massive field to fight something in, where's all the platforming? If there's too much platforming, how am I fighting this thing? I have like no space. So it's difficult to balance all that, in my opinion. Like if I think about it, and I don't have any game dev knowledge, I've never tried to do it. I've played the shit out of a 3D platformer, so I've got some idea, and I've played a lot of them as well. So like the easiest objectives to give for what I was talking about before in a 3D platformer are collectables. You get the stars, you get the jigsaws, you get the note pieces, you get the coins, right? Because those are very obvious objectives for the platforming you have to do to get them. To make combat one of the focuses would be really difficult. Like imagine a From Software Souls-like game in Super Mario 64 level design. It would be really difficult because you'd be falling off of the platform all the time, right? It would not be easy to do that. So it makes more sense to make the objective of what you're doing collectables. 2D platformers usually make you just go from point A to point B. At the start of the level, you go to the end of the level. If you're in 3D, you can't do that as much because there's more freedom for the player's movement. It's less linear. You can make it as linear as possible, but it's still less linear. So it becomes harder to make just getting to the end of the objective. So a lot of them didn't do that. A lot of them gave other objectives. So Super Mario Brothers didn't have stars in it, right, as the objective. Mario does, or SM64 does. So I don't know. It's difficult, is what I'm saying. That's my preamble, I guess. So let's get into it. From Press A, why people hate Donkey Kong 64? I just saw this randomly, and I thought it was an interesting concept. So let's figure it out. Why do people hate it? I liked the game, but I didn't put as much time into it as I have, like even in the past when I was a kid, as I did with Mario. But I did beat it, I'm pretty sure. I don't think I, like, 100%ed it, because I think that's kind of an absurd idea. But I also really enjoy doing it, too. Like, I enjoyed the game for what it was.
I don't know if any game in history has been received with such public and critical acclaim, only for it to be hated and loathed years after its release.
Oh, also, the DK64 speedrun is absurd. This video will probably talk about it, but the main interesting thing about DK64 speedruns is the fact that you can exploit lag to clip through almost nearly anything, it would seem. I don't know the particulars because I don't speedrun the game myself, and I also haven't watched a lot of them. But what I do know is that because this game is massive, on the Dinosaur N64, you literally need the expansion pack to be able to play it, which is like a thing that you have to put in the goddamn motherfucking cartridge box thing in front of the car. Anyway, you can exploit lag by throwing grenades or something, I think is the main way. And it'll allow you to get through certain terrain that you shouldn't be able to get through, which allows you to sequence break and do all this kind of stuff, which is cool and fun, but it's kind of insane. Also, there's like the super jump thing you can do where like you kick outward with Donkey Kong and he just flies forever as people need him, etc. There's a lot of cool tech. Anyway.
When DK64 released in 1999, it was applauded by critics,
1999,
with them praising its length, number of collectibles, and gameplay mechanics. With IGN saying, "This is Rare's War and Peace." It's that simple. These days, when there's a conversation about DK64, it's usually about how much people hate the game and nothing else. The hate has grown so strong in recent years that some developers say that DK64 is to blame for the death of the 3D platform genre as a whole.
Really? Wait, so I've not played Hat in Time, but Hat in Time developer claims Donkey Kong 64 was instrumental in killing off collection platformers. Well, if any developer would have more of an idea than I do about that, it would be the Hat in Time one, because apparently Hat in Time is like one of the most like successful 3D platformers that have come out in the modern era. When did this game come out? I have not played it. I probably should. 2017. Yeah, that's very recent as far as collectathon 3D platformers go. There's like the funny meme dance from this game, right? Wait, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, the Shiggy Wiggy. This is the extent of my knowledge about Hat in Time. Is the Shiggy Wiggy. That's pretty good. Anyway.
And as someone who loved the game as a kid and has never replayed it as an adult, I was curious to why this game received so much hate. So
I think to get the answer to that question, you could just watch H Bomber Guy's famous charity live stream where AOC came on to say trans rights, where he he literally asked AOC, "Yo, do you know where to get such and such in this level of DK64?" And AOC called him an idiot and to stop wasting her time. It was pretty funny. Real story.
I did a little research and ended up coming away with 3 main reasons. It has too many collectibles, the character switching mechanic pads out the game, and the minigames are repeated too often. Now that
I must know. DK64 release date. This was in 1999. November 22nd, 1999. Ooh, 5 days before my birthday. I would have been 4? AOC never said that. Says you. Okay, so then Banjo Kazooie release date. 98. Ooh, that makes sense to me. All right, wait. Banjo Tooie release date. 2000. Ah, the plot thickens. Mario 64 came out in 94? 96. Oh, shit. So, SM64 comes out in 96. It's like the first time Nintendo's putting out something like this, and it's a banger. The movement, crisp. The levels, good for the movement. The gameplay loop, nice. There are some problems. The camera, the final boss of the game for casuals, for real gamers like myself who speedrun it, the camera being the way it is actually an asset because it allows you to set up certain angles that are going to be more consistent to, achieve certain movement from, and it's pretty good. But if you're just playing the game for fun, it's going to be really difficult. So then we got Banjo-Kazooie, the goated game. Game of the year 1998. Let's go. It's really good. And the speedruns are cool as shit. Came out in 98. This game is a collectathon, and there's a lot of things to collect. You gotta collect the jiggies, the shiggy wiggies. You gotta collect the notes. Those are the 2 main ones. You need notes to unlock doors to get to next areas. You need jigsaws to unlock new levels. And other than that, the main things you're collecting are jinjos. I think it's like 5, 6 or something in each level to get another jigsaw. You need to get honeycombs if you want for more HP, but they're not necessary to win. And then other than that, you're just collecting resources like your eggs, your feathers to fly, and whatnot. Also, the transformation mumbo-jumbo magic mechanic is cool. Also, the pumpkin is the best transformation. Anyway, so this game did it very well. Banjo-Kazooie knew what it wanted to be. It achieved what it wanted to be. It didn't try to do anything more. We'll skip over DK64 really quick. We move on to Banjo-Tooie in 2000. This game, in my opinion, is mixed. It's a good game. Don't get me wrong. Banjo-Tooie, a good game. However, is it better than Banjo-Kazooie? Simple answer, no, not at all, not even close. Because I think Donkey said it best, really. Video game Donkey, the Dunkster, Donkey himself. That Banjo-Kazooie was confident in its simplicity. Like I say, it knew what it wanted to be and it did it. Banjo-Tooie, in my opinion, is just trying to do too much. It's trying to do way too goddamn much to the point where it's like, okay, there's a lot to do in this game. There's a lot of things going on, and that's cool, but like, does this help or hamper the experience overall? And I think it can kind of hamper it in some ways, and I'm pretty sure this video is going to get into that. Because DK64, which came out in 99, a year after, roughly, or more than a year after Banjo-Kazooie, I think Donkey Kong 64, we haven't seen the video yet, but from what I could think about, I think DK64 has like Banjo-Tooie-itis in that way. Or I guess Banjo-Tooie would have DK64-itis, because DK64 came first. In that Donkey Kong 64 is probably trying to do too much as well. There's a certain enjoyable nature for simplicity when it comes to gaming, which is why, in my opinion, SM64 still holds up. It might look like shit to some people. I actually like the art style, but whatever. It plays somewhat difficultly for people because of the camera, but the movement itself, how Mario moves is fucking chef's kiss. Mwah! It's very good, which is why SM64 is one of the most popular speed games out there. The 120-star run, the category, is one of the most popular ones out there that people are always excited about when some shit pops off. Shouts out Ouija, who recently beat the world record by a substantial margin. There's a lot of competition for that category right now, which is really cool to see. But anyway, this game plays really well. Mario moves really well. There's a lot of cool stuff you could do with this movement, even as like a casual player, but especially as a speedrunner. It knew what it wanted to be and it did it. And it was also really early on. So like they have the benefit of trying something new and charting uncharted territory to the point where, like, it could have been a shit show, right? The camera was, like, the worst thing about it. Some of the level design, people have gripes about, blah, 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 blah. But overall, it's a good game. And that's because it was simple. They didn't try to complicate it too much. Then if you go to Odyssey, by the way, I have not played. People really like it. The speedruns I've seen of it, the movement seems really cool with Cappy. Certainly more interesting movement for the speedrun than Super Mario Sunshine, for instance. That game has like 1 billion moons, which are like the star equivalents of SM64. There's like the mega moons or whatever, which are like 5 or 10 of them in one, like a banana bunch. And that's like kind of more like the actual stars of Mario or something. I don't fucking know. I'm not playing the game. Anyway, there's so many of them. Essentially, if you want my take, just watch the Joseph Anderson review of Super Mario Odyssey, because there is a lot of bullshit moons in that game. There's a lot of bullshit work you have to do if you want to get everything in the game, which is lame, in my opinion. But anyway, that's the synopsis.
So the first category I looked at was the too many collectibles critique. I did this by counting every collectible in DK64 that counts towards 100% completion of the game. Right. I then took 3 other 3D platformers and did the same thing to get a sort of baseline.
What are we comparing against?
DK64 to. Those 3 games were Banjo Tooie, Mario 64, and Mario Odyssey.
All right, that's fair. That's a fair lineup. I don't know why you would go with Tooie instead of Kazooie, because Banjo Tooie is more similar to DK64, so maybe that's why.
Staples in the 3D platforming genre. If Donkey Kong 64 had a comparable number of collectibles to these games, then we could probably put the too many collectibles critique to rest. But if it had a substantial amount more, then maybe the haters were right after all. So let's get into it, starting first with Banjo Tooie. Banjo Tooie has a total of 1,104 collectibles.
That's a lot of
45 Jinchos, 18 Globos.
It says 54 up there, but you said 45. Opinion discarded.
90 Jiggies,
a lot of nodes.
And 25 extra honeycomb pieces. Mario 64 has a total of 1,798 total collectibles, 120 power stars, 2 keys, 176 red coins, and 1,500 regular coins.
Who the fuck? Oh no, that's true. Okay, that's actually really true. That's fair. Never mind. Forget I said anything. Except I'm gonna keep talking. The 120 star category is not actually 100% of the game, which is why it's not called 100%. Much the same way that the 0, 1, and 16 star categories, and I guess also 70 star categories, could also be considered any percent, but they're not because there are specific reasons for why they're separate. 120 star is every power star in the game. Very easy. 70 star is the amount of stars you need to be able to stop the infinite staircase to get to the final Bowser level from being infinite. So you need to do that if you're not going to backwards long jump up the stairs to clip past the barrier to get to that level. 70 stars is what you need. Then there's 16 star, which is the amount of stars you need to get the second key to be able to get to the upstairs, and then you backwards long jump past the 50 star door and then up the infinite staircase. Those are the sequence breaks. But you need to get 16 to be able to get to Dire Docks and then Fire Sea. 0 and 1 star, you just get the keys, right? You just go to the Bowser level. So 100% of the game is not 120 stars, which is a long-winded way of saying that. 100% would actually be, there are different ideas about this, but I think the community is more or less settled on a thing. The actual, like, 100% category in SM64 is like a meme category. Like, I could probably find it in category extensions. Nobody really cares about it. It just makes a lot more sense to, separate them out in the star count. Category extensions. Where is that? I see. Is there even one for 100%? 1,000 unique coins? That's all coins, I think. 100 unique lives. All signs, by the way. Best meme category. Anyway, you get what I mean. Nobody cares. Carrying on.
Actually, 2,672 coins in the game, but you only need 1,500 of them to complete it. Mario Odyssey has 2,082 collectibles.
Oh god.
999 moons.
Jesus Christ!
1,000 purple coins, 40 outfits, and 43 souvenirs.
So this is gonna be another, another case of way too many goddamn collectibles. What are you saying? So there's 999 moons because they wanted that to be the number, and then a lot of these moons are literally just ground pounding a part of the ground to get a moon randomly. That's it. Like there's a little indicator. You ground pound it, you get a moon. Excellent work. Nobody cares. It's so dumb. How many do you need to beat the game? I don't fucking know, but if we're talking about 100%, you got to get all of them.
And finally, we've come to DK64. I hope you're ready for this. Donkey Kong 64 has 3,500 color bananas.
Jesus!
201 golden bananas. 10 battle crowns. 20 banana fairies. 40 blueprints. 40 banana medals. 8 boss keys. 1 Nintendo coin. And 1 rareware coin. For a grand total of 3,821 total collectibles. That is almost double Mario Odyssey's total of 2,082, which is the next closest game to DK64. Donkey Kong 64's 3,500 color bananas alone beat out Tooie's and Odyssey's and Mario 64's total number of collectibles, which honestly just blows my mind. If you think the sample size here is too low and this doesn't convince you, listen to this. Donkey Kong 64 holds a spot in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most collectibles in a 3D platformer in history. Yeah, I think saying this game has too many collectibles is an understatement.
The Guinness Book of World Records is like fucking dumbass metric to use there, but that's fine.
Give the haters a point on this one. So the next critique
Wait, so I've not played it since. The regular bananas really aren't that bad at all. The number is misleading. Well, so like the regular bananas kind of function in the same way that notes do in Banjo Kazooie, right? Like they're just kind of in the level and you get them. Am I correct, tomato potato? I think that's actually true from what I remember. And the golden bananas are like the, banana. That's the big one that you want to get. They're just like around the level. So what's different about that, and I think I could make the argument here, at least from what we've laid out in this video, from what I've seen, though I've not played it, Super Mario Odyssey's amount of collectibles might be more egregious than Donkey Kong 64's because there's 999 moons, but there are so many of those moons that are literally just hidden in the ground that you have to ground pound to get after recognizing an indicator, which is bullshit. There's no like, oh, wow, that was a really difficult moon to get. I had to do a lot to get that. And like, no, it's just in the level randomly. It's not like not a cool way to get a moon. It's just, it's there. Wow. Right? And there being that many of them, I wish I could remember what Joseph Anderson came to because he counted them all. Maybe we could find it really quick.
The majority of these hidden moons are just as plain and boring as most of the
look at this.
ones, like ground pounding in the right spot,
wow.
or noticing some boxes stacked on a wall, or canceling a possession to land on a platform, or breaking a crate. I think this video has gone on so long that I don't need to show every single one of these, but please note that I could keep going.
Wait, so okay, how many moons are dumb? I think he goes through it at the end.
Still, it wouldn't be fair to say that you have to collect all 880 of these moons, just like I'd say.
So I think there's 880 filler moons, is what he's saying, because there's 999 total. So there's 880 filler ones. Anyway, this is the same issue. Anyway, sorry. Back to this.
Looked at was the character switching mechanic. If you're unaware of how this works, every collectible in the game is color-coded, and only the Kong with the same corresponding color can pick up that collectible. Okay. So, if there's a red banana, for example, only Diddy can pick it up, but he can't pick up any other color.
Fuck that.
And with there being 5 different Kongs that the player can choose from, that means there's 5 different sets of color collectibles that each Kong has to collect separately.
Oh god, and there's gonna have to be so much backtracking then, because once you unlock a new Kong later on, you're gonna have to go back to another level and then switch to that Kong and get that shit. Fuck that. Hit that kind of force switch for no reason? Yeah, because like it's cool to have different Kongs that can do different things and you need them for different objectives. So like you unlock Lanky Kong and now you can do the Lanky Kong thing to progress the game. But you shouldn't have to go all the way back to like the beginning of the game to like just collect some bananas sitting on the ground. You know what I mean? If anything, it should be something major. Because like backtracking can be cool as long as you make it that way. If it's just for like random bananas that you can't collect right now, it's boring.
So, I wanted to figure out exactly how much time is spent backtracking in a level, to see if this complaint was valid or not. So what I did was track the movement of each Kong in a 100% completion run of the game's first world, Jungle Japes. I did this by literally drawing each Kong's path on a map of Jungle Japes, so I could keep track of where each Kong had been. Anytime a Kong would go to an area where a different Kong had already been, I would start a timer, and time them until they entered a new area where no Kong had previously entered.
Where no Kong has ever been before.
I then added all the instances of this occurring throughout the level for each Kong until I had a total time spent backtracking for Jungle Japes. It took 71 minutes to 100% Jungle Japes. 25 minutes and 34 seconds of that, 71 minutes, was spent backtracking. So 36% of the time spent in Jungle Japes was dedicated solely towards backtracking. 36% of the level is just going back to areas you've already been to. In fact, there are only 3 areas in the entire level that you don't go to more than once. This mining area, this beehive, and this lake. Every other area in the level you go to at least more than once. And remember, this is just the first world in the game. Some of the later worlds in Donkey Kong 64 get incredibly complex, meaning that this backtracking percentage would probably skyrocket in later levels like Fungi Forest or Crystal Caves. So I would call character switching padding out the length of the game a valid criticism. That really is the story of Donkey Kong 64 though, isn't it? Too much. Too many collectibles, too much backtracking, and too many minigames.
Didn't I say that?
If you're a gamer that likes
Banjo Tooie's trying to do too much, Donkey Kong 64 is trying to do too much.
that sort of thing, then Donkey Kong 64 is a dream come true. And if you don't, it's an absolute nightmare. I can really see both sides. I just hope with this video, I was able to highlight exactly what makes people hate Donkey Kong 64.
This hot mama jamma? Well, that was a segment. It was a good video. I think it was fair, reasonable, and I talked a lot about shit, perhaps unrelated to it. I hope you've enjoyed my endless rambling. But now I'm gonna move on.